That's exactly why I want to spend the next part of today's webinar teaching you some of the most powerful concepts in bodybuilding or in building a physique. And the probably the biggest opportunity is understanding progressive overload and also applying what gets measured gets improved. What gets measured gets improved. So if I were to ask you, and I don't necessarily need anybody to answer me, but if I want you to answer this for yourself, if I ask you the workout you did today or yesterday, could you tell me why it was better the last time you did that same workout? If the answer is no, like don't feel discouraged. This is most people. I talk to a lot of people week in and week out that compete. You won't be alone if the answer is no, because most competitors are never taught some of these simple tools. And the good news is that's about to change because I'm going to give you one of the simplest things you can use to get more out of your training. Single most important concept of all, progressive overload. Every great physique you've admired, every champion, every successful natural overall competitor, every woman you looked at and thought, I wish I had shoulders like hers. They built those muscles through progressive overload. The body's incredibly efficient. I call it the world's greatest machine. If you place greater and greater demands on the body responds by building a stronger body. And the body's it's only going to change when you ask and require it to do more than it has before. Under that same premise, if you reduce the demands on the body will reduce the amount of muscle mass to support the demands. And this is why going into a contest, we never lower how much weight we're training with. I'm not telling you to go and try and set PRs. I'm not saying that. What I am saying is if normally you use 100 pounds, just because the contest is getting near, we're not going to drop it to 70. It's dumb because the body is built to survive and it's going to keep the muscle and build it larger. If the demands are there, if there's no demands, the body will get rid of the muscle. Do I need to become stronger? If the answer is no, it has absolutely no reason to build more muscle. It will keep giving you the same physique. So progressive overload simply means we're asking the body to do just a little bit more over time. We don't need to go from a 285 squat to a 440, but do need to go from 285 to 290 to 295 to 300. There has to be progress. So how do we create the overload? First, you must train. And that's not necessarily just adding weight to the bar or to the leg press. That's part of it. Yes, we need to favor the large multi-joint lifts. Why? Because we have the opportunity to handle more weight. Let's compare and contrast barbell back squat out of a rack to a body weight squat on a Swiss ball. You're going to handle more weight in the free weight barbell back squat. Or let's take the case of a dumbbell or barbell close grip bench press compared to a dumbbell kickback for both tricep exercises. You're going to handle much less weight in that dumbbell kickback than in the close grip bench press. So the goal, maybe this week you perform one more rep. Maybe you clean up your technique. Maybe you pause at the transition from the concentric to the eccentric phase a little longer. Maybe you lower the weight slower. Maybe the range of motion is greater. All of these things can represent progress. The goal isn't always to chase heavier weight, and definitely not heavier weight at the expense of good form. Nobody wants to get hurt. Like we used to tell our athletes, I used to ask our collegiate athletes looking for NFL pro days, I said, what do you think the number one thing is for athletes to go to professional sports? And they would say the 225 bench press, 40-yard dash, vertical jump, broad jump, algebra, all those. Yes, all those things matter, but athletes that get hurt get less reps, spend less time training. So you can't get hurt. So we're not saying more weight at the expense of safety. We'd never say that. The goal is to create more productive tension on the muscle, which leads to a larger muscle. And this is where bodybuilding really starts to separate from general fitness. In simple terms, how can we force the body to produce more force? How can we challenge the body? And it's going to be in that heavy barbell squat, not in that group fitness environment. And again, that's why a heavy barbell back squat is going to build more muscle than a minute of jump squats.